As of the year 2021, planet Earth has close to 7.9 billion people across 7 continents. Asia has the highest population at 4.6 billion, with Africa behind it at 1.3 billion people. Europe comes in third with 747 million, while North America is fourth at 592 million. Taking the 5th spot is South America with 430 million people, and 6th is Australia with only 43 million. The least populated continent is Antarctica with a mere population of, well, 0. The number is 0 because nobody is in fact an indigenous inhabitant to this continent. There are 2 main categories of people who reside in Antarctica: those who live and work on scientific stations for research purposes, and tourists who visit while traveling. Let's now quickly look at the most populated countries within these continents. Starting with Asia, as of 2021, China is the most populated, with an estimated 1.4 billion people, representing almost 19% of the world, and India comes in second with 1.3 billion people. Looking over to North America, the United States is in third at a distant 331 million. Then heading back to Asia, Indonesia scores the 4th spot with 273 million. And not very far behind is Pakistan, in the 5th spot with 220 million people. Going down to South America, Brazil leads with 212 million. And heading over to Africa, Nigeria has 206 million people. And the very last but not least is a little country known as the Holy See, with the lowest population of just 801 people. According to the United Nations, around 385,000 babies are born every day, but unfortunately, around 150,000 people die every day as well. Simple math will tell us this is a net gain of 235,000 humans joining the population every 24 hours, or 9,791 people per hour, or 163 people every minute, or 3 people every second. Think about that for a second. Yep, 3 babies were just born. But why does all of this matter? That's a good question. In this video, we're going to discuss 2 essential questions that will determine the future survival of this planet. How many people can the Earth sustain? And have we surpassed that number yet? Please stick with us throughout the entire video to get these answers. But before we begin, kindly subscribe to our channel, click that like button, share it with your friends, and turn on notifications for the latest uploads. The entire debate, opinions, and study about the actual carrying capacity of the Earth have existed for decades. Scientists haven't been reading the same script when working around this issue. They tend to disagree, not only on the final number, but also on the most accurate way to get to the number of people the Earth can comfortably sustain. But looking at it objectively, it really doesn't matter whether we have 100 million or 1 trillion people. What matters is that we properly utilize the resources available to us to live as sustainable as possible, so we can continue to improve our everyday quality of life. Considering the Earth's population will continue to grow exponentially over time, it is inevitable we ask ourselves the most pressing questions. How will we be able to accommodate everyone? And to effectively answer that question, we have no option but to look at resource consumption, because at the end of the day, it is what we consume that enables us to survive. People around the world consume resources differently, so let's start by looking at the United States. The average middle-class American is said to consume 3.3 times the normal amount of food each person is supposed to consume, and almost 300 times the average amount of clean water. Going by these numbers, if everyone on Earth lived by these standards, then the planet might have a carrying capacity of only about 2 billion people, far less than what we already have. But if people consumed what they actually needed, like on a ratio of 1 to 1, then the Earth could potentially and effectively support a much higher figure, possibly even billions more than what we have now. When it comes to what the Earth needs to support people into the billions, we have no choice but to focus on the quality of life over the quantity of life, And one way to get there is by constantly improving our engineering capacity to invent new ways to do more with less. Theoretically, the Earth might be able to support up to 1 trillion lives, but the question remains, what would be the quality of life? Such are the questions that Elon Musk tried getting a solution to, which led him to start the process of exploring ways to fly people to Mars by the year 2050. Side note, in case you didn't know, we have a couple of cool videos about this topic specifically, so be sure to go and watch them after this video. Whether Musk's plans will come to fruition is still unknown, but at least he is sparking the interest and taking action towards attempting to improve the life of humans as we know it. Mahatma Gandhi once said that the world has enough for everyone's needs, but not enough for everyone's greed. Unfortunately, one of the biggest problems today is inequality. While some recklessly toss food in the trash, thousands sleep on the streets, hoping for a miracle from heaven to drop food on their feet. With the population continuing to grow by the second, can the Earth support this many people indefinitely and unconditionally? What happens if nothing is done to manage future population growth and the available resources? These endless complex questions expand across ecological, political, and ethical aspects. Let's put the growth of this planet into perspective by quickly looking at how fast we've come to the current population of nearly 7.9 billion people. It was estimated that Earth had a population of 1 billion people in the year 1804, and it took 123 years to double that number to reach 2 billion by 1927. Another 47 years later, it doubled again to 4 billion people by 1974. And another 47 years later, it doubled again from the 4 billion mark, as the population is approaching 8 billion people in the year 2021. Based on these numbers, it took 123 years to double from 1 billion to 2 billion, but it took 33 years to go from 2 billion to 3 billion. And believe it or not, it only took another 14 years to reach the next 1 billion mark from 1960 to 1974. After this, it was just a short 13 years to go from 4 billion in 1974 to 5 billion in 1987. But the next 1 billion came even faster in only 12 years, when the world population went from 5 billion in 1987 to 6 billion in 1999. The anticipated rise in these numbers signals a harsh biological and ecological reality. If the UN population projection is anything to go by, the world will have a population of 8.6 billion by the year 2035, 9.8 billion by 2055, and 11.2 billion by 2100. The problem is, humans are consuming, and at the same time, polluting the resources. Wealthy countries tend to consume out of proportion to their consumers. For example, in 2015, the United States used 322 billion gallons of fresh water, which translates to over 1,000 gallons per person per day. African countries dread such resources, and lack of clean water is still a problem to this day. According to the World Health Organization, 2.1 billion people lack ready access to safe drinking water. To put the world's water resources into perspective, 97.2% of the water is found in the ocean, 2% is in the glaciers and ice caps, 0.62% is groundwater, 0.009% is freshwater lakes, 0.008% is inland seas and salt lakes, 0.001% is in the atmosphere, and only 0.0001% is in the rivers. Despite that visually appealing figure, 4.5 billion people still lack proper sanitation. Contrary to expectations, even in industrialized economies, water resources are still contaminated with pathogens, heavy metals, insecticide runoff, and fertilizer. Modern medicine and technology have facilitated the boom in the human population, and it will continue to improve as more solutions are being found. Things like diseases and natural disasters that used to kill us don't anymore, and people can now exploit resources much faster than ever before. According to the World Health Organization, air pollution alone kills an estimated 7 million people globally every year. They further explain that 9 out of 10 people breathe air that exceeds limits containing high levels of pollutants, with low and middle income countries suffering from the highest exposures. Take India, for example. As it grows and urbanizes, its water sources are getting more toxic. It is scientifically estimated that about 70% of surface water in India is unfit for consumption. The cost of environmental degradation is estimated to cost them a jaw-dropping $80 billion a year. And on top of that, the health costs related to water pollution alone cost an average of $7.7 billion per year. Moreover, the lack of clean water, proper sanitation, and hygiene results in the loss of about 400,000 lives every calendar year. This is not the world that we all look forward to. So what do you think is the best way to go about solving pollution issues? Let us know in the comment section below. From the facts and figures we've highlighted so far, one thing is clear. Planet Earth is not getting any bigger, but the population is. This means something eventually has to give. According to analysts, it is not the number of people on the planet that is the issue, but rather the number of consumers and the scale and nature of their consumption. While the planet might host over 12 billion people by the end of this century, the current level of know-how does not allow room for us to predict and analyze whether such a large population will be sustainable. Circling back to our initial questions of how many people can the Earth sustain and have we passed this number already are subjective questions that cannot be definitively answered. The number of people on this planet will rely on everybody's ability to work together to make the most habitable place for everyone to live. Or one day, none of us will be left. For now, the Earth remains our home, as it can still sustain us despite the challenges, ranging from climate change to natural disasters to world pandemic diseases. Almost 8 billion people and still counting. I believe we will be here for the foreseeable future. But the best we can do to save our planet is to take a keen interest in our consumption habits and environmental conservation. That way, we can ensure that future generations will have a place to call home. In your opinion, what do you think is the best way to conserve planet Earth for future generations? If you enjoyed our video, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Share the video and give it a like, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell for updates to newly released videos. We value your feedback. Feel free to share your thoughts with us in the comment section below, and we will see you in the next video.